Representative Corrinne Ching. I serve the Lilihan-Nu'uanu district. I have been a supporter of chocolate ever since, I suppose, I learned that it could be grown here, that it was being grown here, and I did a botany paper on it, and back in college. I'm here to help, to be of service to you, to grow this, I think, exciting industry. I think you're in good hands with a number of special people you've got in this room. But we are very much looking forward to the vision that chocolate will be a boon to not only our economy, but the potential for it to keep green and open space and to keep our keiki home in Hawaii with jobs.
I'm Michael Conway. I'm the agriculture manager for Dole Food Company. Have been for a long time, which not only includes 20 acres of cacao, but about 3,000 acres of pineapple and about 150 acres of coffee. So cacao has what initially started as just sort of a side project, which I got involved in because my experience with this crop goes back about 23 years. And I was probably responsible for bringing most of the germplasm into here, into Hawaii, for which many of you are working with that are growers or potential growers. So I've developed a lot of experience with this crop and still in a learning mode. I think everybody's going to be in a learning mode because we cannot use the typical techniques and agriculture practices that you would find in other growing regions because Hawaii is out of that type of mode. So we have to develop our own practices in many ways, both from a cultivation standpoint and from a post-harvest standpoint. Where am I going with all this? In the end, it's all about the quality. And I'm not here to lecture anybody on something like that, but what our experience has shown us is if you get the quality, you have a real opportunity, not only in a local market out here, but in the U.S. mainland market, and we haven't even touched the Asian market yet, but our instincts are that there's a growing market in that area too. But again, it's all about the quality.
You don't have many cacaos here, but you have the post-harvest processing, which we do not have there at a small scale, scale level. So I'm here. My work is about the assessment of the cacao industry here in Hawaii, and we really would want to make an organization here and to do this strategic planning for the cacao industry here in Hawaii, which can be the basis of also our development of the cacao industry in the Philippines.
I got involved actually with the chocolate industry based on my interaction with the Made in Hawaii Festival, and was asked to join the Cacao Task Force. And as a result of that, I became more and more interested in chocolate, and one of the suggestions I made to the task force was actually to increase the awareness of chocolate here in Hawaii, that we should have some sort of trade show or festival. And I waited a year or so, and then I wasn't really sure if the industry was going to organize and do it, and then just decided, okay, I'm going to do it. So with the help of many of you here and support, which I greatly appreciate, we were able to have our first event this last year, which we will do a recap on today. So thanks for coming.
So we started off with trying to develop a propagation protocol since we want to produce grafted plants in large numbers for our trials. So we created what we're calling stock plants, and we finally decided on air layering, which on the two left pictures you can see you essentially debark a branch, wrap it in sphagnum moss. We use a net here to retain it, wrap it in plastic, and eventually you'll get roots growing within that sphagnum. At that point you lop off the branch and you can plant that, and it will grow its own roots. You can see the picture there, a very thick trunk with a bunch of spindly branches coming off of it. And we trim off those branches and divide them up and use those for grafting. This wedge grafting, it's very simple and economic. Doesn't require a whole lot of skill or practice to really master this method. As I mentioned, it's economical. A small amount, less than an inch of wood from the selection will be successful. In the middle of the summer and the early, we've been working on developing establishment methods to quickly establish the trees. As Mike had mentioned, the trade winds are definitely a force to be reckoned with here. They need some protection from wind. It's advisable to have wind blocks up ahead of time. But we use these cages that are constructed out of hog wire and covered in various types of plastic that give protection from excessive sun, protect from the wind, and the rose beetles, one of the insects that was also mentioned earlier, causes damage on early trees. In the center frame, you can see a seedling which was not protected at all. The seed was directly planted in the ground, allowed to come up. It's really kind of stunted. The leaves are kind of burned and scorched. And on the right, you can see a seed that was planted at the same time and from the same pod that was protected by a cage, which is, of course, removed in this photo. You can see it's quite a stark difference. We've also been looking into wind blocks and potential shade trees. Bannergrass is used by a lot of people around the state for a number of reasons. It can be used as a temporary wind block because it comes up so rapidly while you're developing larger and more permanent wind blocks such as Panax, or as Seneca had mentioned, he's using Koa, something that was more long-lasting and more substantial. But the benefits of bannergrass are that it's a sterile grass, it does not produce seed, so it doesn't spread very much laterally, the way that bamboo or something like that would. It kind of stays more or less where you plant it. It requires some maintenance. But it's very convenient to propagate. You simply harvest, it grows up to 15, 20 feet at least. You harvest stalks, you strip the leaves off, and you literally just lay these stalks down into horizontal trenches, and they break buds at each of the nodes, at each of the separations along the stem, and grow up rapidly to provide you with temporary wind block. KX4 is a Lucina, the infamous Koa Ali tree, but it had been bred at UH by Jim Brubaker and hybridized so that it is also sterile. It produces flowers but never sets seed. This grows very rapidly. We have some trees we planted a year ago in Waimanalo from air layers, which I talked about a little bit earlier, and these trees are already 40 feet high, which is incredible. They cast a really light shade, so if you are going to shade your cacao, you don't want something heavy like a mango or a lychee. And it also fixes nitrogen, so if you decide you don't want it later, you can chop it down and the nitrogen will slowly release into the soil. Madre de cacao has been historically used for shade in a lot of cacao growing regions. It's another nitrogen fixing leguminous tree. It is not nearly as fast growing, but it does have a lot of historical use and success with it. And the convenience of this is that you take unrooted stem cutting. So you simply lop off branches of a mature tree, plug them into the ground, and provide some irrigation. And they will sprout their own roots and new growths on top. Well, one of the issues we have to contend with recently is transporting all of our grafted trees to the neighbor islands for establishment. On this island, of course, we just load them up in a van or a truck and drive them around. But there is no ferry anymore, and we worry about putting them into the airplane with air conditioning and a host of or having them shipped and exposed to heat and stressful conditions. So this sounds stressful as well, but we found through doing a couple of informal trials at the university that we can actually bare root these trees, package them into small boxes that you'd use for transporting fresh cut flowers, and you can hold them even 2 days. And if you plant them and provide them with those shelters, make sure that they're irrigated, they will rather quickly reestablish and start growing again. We have already selected several cooperators and planted on their farms, but we're still in this process. We are focusing on Oahu and Hawaii right now, but we'll be moving on shortly to Maui, Molokai, and Kauai. We've been evaluating on the criteria for environmental conditions, and we're really, as I mentioned earlier, trying to really test the limits of the range, ranging from hot and dry sites, such as Pearl City here, which is really, really very hot, challenging, right under the highway. Ranging all the way up to high elevation sites at 1,800 or almost 2,000 feet on the Big Island, where it's cloudy, it's relatively wet, and you get cool nights. So the goal of this is to be able to, well, test the limits of the cacao growing conditions, and also be able to make specific recommendations for growers. Post-harvest handling protocol, we have been working on developing a repeatable method for fermenting our cacao in the laboratory. We use an incubator to kind of control the temperature conditions. We definitely are still working out some of the bugs, as I mentioned in the last discussion before the break. Fermentation is definitely, as you also saw in the survey, is one of the largest challenges in the state here. So currently, we've been inoculating fresh seed with a little bit of yeast, a very small amount, 20 milligrams of yeast per kilogram of wet seed. We incubate it in an incubator, and then we either oven dry it or sun dry it. And we store it in an insect-proof screen at ambient conditions. One of the issues in some places in the state definitely has been storage of beans. They get attacked by a boron beetle, which will get in and eat a hole and leave frass, which is definitely something we don't want. Similar to our fermentation and drying protocol, which is going to be uniform, we have a protocol for roasting at specific temperatures, cracking, separating the seed from the shell, and processing the chocolate liquor, and according to a specific recipe, making a uniform finished chocolate product that we can compare between beans from different sites. Our field plan for each of our cooperators consists of 40 trees. As I mentioned, we have the 10 selections, so we'll have 4 copies of each of our selections at each site. We have to adapt these to different sites according to available space and currently planted crops such as coffee and otherwise. And then what we do is create a planting map for each site, which we give to the cooperator so that they can easily walk out into their field with reference points and monitor the progress. For data collection, we are doing a soil analysis for all of our sites. There's a USDA facility on campus, so we measure the macro and micronutrients, soil pH, general parameters. We look at local weather conditions, temperature maximums and minimums, and we try to monitor establishment and juvenile growth data. When the trees do come to bearing, we want to have information about the yield per tree type, and we will ferment, at least for the first year or two, a subset of the harvest from each tree, and of course give that information that we gain the data back to the cooperator. So a little short summary of the progress we've made so far. In 2010, we established 4 sites here in Oahu. One at Waialua on the Dole plantation, which is sea level, fairly dry. Those trees are in full sun. Pearl City, not far over past the airport, is also sea level. It's very dry, very hot, full sun. Kualoa is interesting, kind of sticky, thick soil. It's definitely wet and not particularly well draining. It's cooler than the 2 previous sites, and it's not quite as bright. It's a little more overcast over there. And Waimanalo on our research station, which is slightly above sea level. It is dry, a little cooler than Pearl City, and partial sun. On Hawaii Island in 2010 and 2011, we established 3 sites. Honaunau on basically just very little soil, rocky lava. It's mostly full sun down there. Up above the town of Hawaii, we planted, it is all soil there, not a whole lot of rocks, but it is very, very cool at night. It's fairly wet, it's partly cloudy most of the time, and one higher elevation site not far from our 800-foot site in Honaunau, where it is overcast much of the time, a good bit cooler, but it is also rocky soil. We plan to expanding 3 more sites on the windward side of Hawaii Island, and plant on the other neighbor islands soon, and cover a wider and environmental range.
So this was our blessing. We had the proclamation declaring Hawaiian Grown Chocolate Month. And we were also kind enough to get the governor to give us a little proclamation for the festival as well. And here's our fabulous sponsor from Wailua. we definitely appreciated their support. This was our Jeff Peterson, who was one of our performers for the event. And we, of course, had our chocolate girls. This was our chocolate tree, which was manned by our halau, who was the beneficiary of the event, and then they did perform. So again, we felt we had a pretty good crowd for our first year event. We had about 1,000 people that came. So we felt for our first year event that was really good. And we had a pretty good response from folks telling us that they did have good sales. At least we're able to make really good connections as well. That was our cacao girl, who we had a logo design that was kind of a girl that comes out of a cacao pod. So we thought that was kind of a fun logo. So we had about 35 exhibitors participating this last year, and we did kind of reach out to a variety of people. For example, Hokulani Bakery that weren't necessarily selling Hawaiian chocolate, but we're trying to encourage people to embrace. You just saw Sharky, who was here. We did have folks from Maui and from the Big Island, and we're hoping to get even more representation so that we can really kind of make this a statewide thing. As Representative Ching was saying, that we definitely do want to try to get this to be expanded more on other islands as well. I think there are people, you know, we can kind of have maybe even smaller features there. So in addition to the chocolate, we had the soap, we had the chocolate beer, chocolate vodka. So trying to figure out what those other things are. Today I'm wearing chocolate bean earrings, cacao bean earrings. So hopefully we'll have some different things this year, and things that will also support the idea, because people that like chocolate obviously are going to come out and support those different kinds of things, and it just helps the industry overall. Pam said she would have been here today, but she broke her ankle from the Big Island. So this was our chocolate garden. We actually sold the cacao seedlings there, and did very well. We had Ken Vins out there from Olamana Tropicals, and he's very excited, wants to participate again this next year. We had chocolate mint and chocolate orchids, if some of you didn't get a chance to go around. And there's Skip educating everyone. So this was actually one of the really well-received highlights. I think we pretty much had full houses for most of these sessions. Everybody wanting to learn and get more information. So this was a really nice component. So that was when we were filming for the Hawaiian Airline in-flight. Again, that is a huge audience. It's a very good marketing tool for us. So vanilla chocolate actually was one that was sort of, when we set the date for the festival, was motivated to kind of move their production more quickly to actually get into business to make it in time for the festival. So we're really happy to see that we kind of generated at least one company to kind of really get going. And that's really what's good about having something, a festival like this, is it sort of focuses everybody's attention and gives them a deadline in which to sort of work towards. And then again, incorporating the educational information. I think we want to do more of that this year. And again, that was our halal. They were raising money to go to Mary Monarch, which they did, and they did very well. So I was very lucky to have them helping us at that event, working the door and helping with some of the booths as well.